I was on an anastrozole for 5 years, which was, I didn't realize how bad it was until I was off of it.
Mhm.
So I can't take any supplements. I mean, we know my body would make estrogen into cancer. Like that's what fed
Yes.
my cancer. Hi there.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I am very excited to talk to you. Can you please tell us your name and a quick overview of what you do and how you arrived where you are?
I'm Suzanne Nadel, and I always describe myself, introduce myself as a wife, mom, and boss. I have been married 25 years in September. I am a mom of a 15-year-old boy. I spent 30 years in television news, 20 of that actually in management, running newsrooms.
And where and what state?
Across the country. So my most recent job was in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I still live. I ran the ABC affiliate. I was the news director for the ABC affiliate for 6 years. And I also led newsrooms in Pennsylvania and Tulsa, and I worked in Florida a lot. I still work freelance for newsrooms, the company that I worked for more than 20 years. I'll go in, and when they are down a manager or need training, I'll go in. I felt very led, especially after the pandemic and beating cancer a couple times, both Hodgkin's lymphoma and breast cancer. I felt very led to explore what led me to leadership and mixed messages I was getting in faith space, growing up with those kinds of things. So I wrote a book called Wired to Lead, being the leader the church didn't think I could be. And it's basically life lessons I learned in a newsroom. So life lessons that I didn't learn in church world, but I learned in newsroom world because that's where I was embraced as a leader. What's interesting is with the book, I didn't set out to go into content creation and all of those things. But when I did the book, they're like, if you're going to sell a book and you're going to get a deal, and I really wanted a traditional deal, you have to have a presence. So out of going for everything for the book, I ended up growing a social media following, starting a blog that I've had, I think, over 200 blog posts over the past couple of years now. I do speaking. I'm getting ready to work on another book, really focused on kind of burnout for working women and leaders, midlife, and kind of what's behind that, the narratives behind that, and why we can't push through midlife like men can. And a lot of that's because the societal messages and what is expected of us versus what's expected of men. So that's what I'm working on, the project I'm working on now. So I tell people I do a little bit of a lot. I still go into newsrooms and consult and fill in. I'm a CEO of a startup that is in support of women of faith who are in leadership spaces, both inside churches and outside churches. And then I do all of my own content creation and collaboration and writing and everything that goes along with that.
I gotcha. Well, fascinating. So you come from a professional background in communicating, and you didn't look for it, but it kind of translated into this new medium that we all try to master. Do you think that being a great communicator, professional communicator, was a big help? Or would you say that's number one quality that made you an influencer? Or do you think there are other qualities that are even more important?
I do think it helped. I think the two things that helped me is what's hard for a lot of people is easier for me because it is kind of what I've done.
Mhm.
So I was a reporter back in the day, all of those things. So I know how to speak on camera. I know how to be engaging. I know how to make videos. I know how to do things that would take a lot of people a long time. So for 2 years straight, when I started in 21 to 23, I did not miss a night of these things that I called a back deck chat. And it was just me sitting on my back deck, just talking about something that happened during the day. And of course, and I would tie it into a life lesson. Of course, they were really bad at first, but people would see those and they would think it would take a lot of time to do. But for me, someone who was trained to be able to speak off the fly pretty quickly and be able to tell a story around it and know how to tell a story and know how to edit and do those things, it's not as heavy of a lift for me as maybe some people.
Mhm.
The other thing that's helped me is just kind of innately I am who I am, and it's just kind of, I think, transparency and honesty. I mean,
Being
I mean,
authentic. I think I hear it all the time that is you can't fake it,
yeah,
and that I think that's you being yourself,
yeah,
actually taking your followers on a journey of your maturing and getting wiser, I believe, and
yeah, I think
you're
so too.
sharing
And
all of that.
you can't create a different persona and people not see through it. Like I could have gotten completely all dolled up for this meeting, but am I all dolled up in all of my social media stuff? No. And I think that's
That is a part of it, I believe
part
so.
of who I am. Some days you're going to see me in a messy bun. And, there are some days where I'm not going to get out of my jammies because I don't have to. I had to get out of my jammies every day for a long time. So people want to see who you are and they want to connect with you. Connection. It always goes back to connection. And it's that way in TV news as well. With the addition of digital, what makes TV news still different in TV is the people and connecting
But you
to
know
the
what? But my understanding, I see that the transition going from a news person into the influencer, not too many people make that transition because there is really the producers are telling you more or less who you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to act. And the way I see it is that you have to have that insight wisdom that you have something to say and it's interesting. And it's not just interesting to you, but other people can identify with it. And I think that that's the unique part if I were, because again, I've talked to many influencers, and I think that's what it is.
yeah.
Especially, there are also influencers that they're not really doing tricks and they're not speaking as, but anybody that has to be engaged in the context of what you have to say, they've got to have some part of emotional attachment, and I think that that's where you come in, and it is such a fascinating thing because I work with a lot of women 30 40 years old and trying to help them in the fitness world. So knowing that women go through the menopause and it's hormonally is more difficult. They also are homemakers. So if there is somebody sick in the house, they also have to partake in this. There, I totally agree with your statement. It is very difficult to manage all of that. But my question to you is that what do you think are the most important things that make the transition that you were talking about happen? Is it a hormonal, physical, or is it switching from having kids into being more of an empty nesters, or is it something else that I'm not getting?
You mean physical change? Like,
Physical, but you're earlier you said that it's for women it's very difficult to make that transition. And is it just physical, or is it emotional, or is it relationship, or is it spiritual? What is the most important?
I think it's a lot of things. And I'm sorry, my teenage son just let a friend in the house and my dog's losing her mind. She's part Chihuahua and
We
she,
can hear it, so you
okay,
will.
good. Okay, great, great. Thank you. Um, I think it's combination. So I think you have a generation of women who are midlife right now, and we were told we can go out and have it all. You could be a mom, you could be a leader, you can do all of these things. And two things did and didn't happen. Nobody was there to help women figure it out, except say maybe some of them were like, well, I did it, you could do it too. What also didn't happen is a change in the systems. And they're expecting women to do what men historically did. And I'm speaking like professionally and leadership wise. But what was expected of women in previous generations didn't change as well. So it's like, yeah, you can have it all and you can be an executive, but you still better make sure that you're at all of your kids' events, and you still better make sure that you've got a perfectly decorated house, and you still got to do this. And those were things that are not expected of many men and those similar things. So women just burn out.
Yep.
And at a point where men would be going to that final killer job, women are just like, I can't do it all anymore.
Mhm.
And I think what we're seeing is a regression and what has happened with women progressing in leadership roles, because now I think I could go down a whole rabbit hole of narratives and things like that. But people are seeing women get fried and it not working, and we're not progressing that we did in the previous generation because we didn't change the narratives and the expectations and look at everything that's in there. I do say, as a menopausal woman, and I went into menopause early because of the breast cancer. I had my ovaries removed, and then because I had hormone-based breast cancer, I was put on a aromatase inhibitor, which then, stops all estrogen production. I was on an anastrozole for 5 years, which was, I didn't realize how bad it was until I was off of it. So I can't take any supplements. I mean, we know my body would make estrogen into cancer. Like that's what fed
Yes.
my cancer. So I do think there's a lack of understanding of what that does exhaustion wise and mentally and everything to women's bodies as well in this time. So I think we didn't set women up for success in midlife in general as we were making these progressions. We didn't set women up for success. And if we're going to set women up for success, I love the conversations about menopause being open and what to expect there. And I think also the expectations of how do you do it? I was able to do it as long as I did because I have a husband who is a great partner. And we don't believe life skills are gender based. And, if he does all the cooking in the house, and it was never this conversation, oh, you're the man, are you okay doing the cooking in the house? No, he did. And he has a good job too. He works for CNN. So I was able to do what I did because I had a good partner, but there are many women who can't. I've had women who were managers and who left, and they didn't have the support of their husbands because one girl I'll never forget, great potential, great leader, had her first child. And I really believe if it wasn't for the societal expectation of her husband, she would have continued to climb. But he had a very good job, came from a very affluent house, and he was used to he wanted a wife who was there at 5 o'clock at home every evening. And he couldn't get past that. And she didn't have the partnership and the support to be able to get past it. So I think it's a combination of things.
I got you. I understand. Now, so please tell me, how does spirituality, because it says you're also not only a leader in the community and also an influencer and a communication specialist and a great mom and a great wife, but you also have a very important role in church. And I just wonder when did it start? Were you parents religious, or did you just come through a marriage or a family, or what triggered?
Yeah. So my dad is a pastor, or was a pastor. He's retired now. That's what kind of led to my book. I am wired to lead just like my dad. I was, if you want to take a look at what my dad did, being a senior pastor leading congregations, probably the skills made him very good at that, or the skills that made me very good at growing audience and running newsrooms and being able to speak to a camera and all of those kinds of things. In the denomination I grew up in, women in leadership was not an option.
That's correct. And what denomination would that be?
It was Independent Christian Church. It was very Baptist-like, very, very Southern Baptist-like. So I didn't question it. It's just the way it was. I knew if I was going to lead in church, I probably needed to marry a pastor or go into youth ministry. And I'm not that good with kids. And I did not want to be a preacher's wife. I did not look at my mom's life as a happy one, being a preacher's wife. So I went with something else. And that's really kind of the premise of the book. It's in newsrooms, it was women and men who saw me as a leader and embraced me as a leader. And that's where I grew in my leadership. And I learned all those life lessons. Now, I will say in that process, my faith kind of pulled back. And as I got older, I'd realized what I really believed, not what I was raised to believe, but what I believed. And when I took a look at what I believed and I did my studies and all of that, I have a different interpretation, a realignment of interpretation of some of the things that the Bible says when it comes to women and different things. So I grew, and I'm now in a position of leadership in my church. And I do think part of what fits well in my niche and all of these things is that the underlying narratives that women, a lot of women here are things that were, things that they were taught in churches
Mhm.
about what women can do and what
Well,
men
how
can.
do you, I'm sure that, coming from the Baptist background, I'm sure that, St. Paul in the Corinthians, I can specifically talks about the role of women in church. So
Mhm.
I'm sure that that's being brought up all the time. So
Oh yeah.
what is your answer to that question?
My answer is the context, and it's the context in everything. So Paul was saying that to that church because there were a group of women in that church and in that area that had been worshiping a pagan god that was very tied that was tied to different beliefs, and he was speaking specifically to those women in relationship. It was the context of what Paul was saying. If you look throughout the rest of the New Testament and people who we don't talk about a lot of time in the New Testament, look at Phoebe, look at Lydia, like look at this Priscilla and Aquila, where Priscilla is mentioned before her husband's name more times than not, which shows the influence they had. Like
And
Lydia was
Lydia
like,
was the first
yeah,
convert to Christianity in the European continent, I believe that's
yeah.
their, and as well as the women discovering that the tomb was empty, also were women
Yeah.
as well. So
Well, and that's yeah. The fact that that they talk about the women with Jesus all
Mhm.
the time and discovering constantly shows how they were like flipping the script on those. What we've lost in conversation and what continues to hurt women is a lack of understanding of context of much of what's in the New Testament and why they were saying and the Old Testament as well. It was certain things and things that have been changed over time uh, based on it. But I love talking about women like Priscilla and Lydia and all of those. I say there's some real badass women in the New Testament that you don't learn about in Sunday school and church. Like they just gloss over them, and they had like really important
Yeah.
roles and really cool. There are examples of leading business women in the New Testament. And I didn't hear about them until I went and I was raised in church, and I never heard a story about Priscilla or Lydia or Phoebe until I became an adult. They're not in your little kid Sunday school curriculum.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yes, and that's well, it gives me a little bit of food for thought because again, I have to, revisit my own ideas about women in church because that's a context is absolutely very important, and and you see that women also would be really driven. I don't want to speak for women, of course, but again, I think that if you make that statement about the importance and women being pioneers and not simply followers, and again, and then the Bible says, in many cases, they were the pioneers that did save towns and they did save marriages, and I think that definitely puts them in this leadership position that should be exposed. I think that we both agree on totally. Um, Let me, my next question would be is it's a little bit more of leading into it and maybe not so, but I always like to ask the question is if you had a chance to have dinner with your three favorite people, dead or alive, who would that be?
Okay, one is very stereotypical, Oprah. But
She actually, everybody I talk to, Oprah is the number one, and Jesus Christ is number two.
yeah, yeah. Oprah, um, just because of everything she's done and she's remained basically scandal free. Like I think she's like, just an example of she saw what she wanted to do, she did it, she continues to do it, she continues to make her mark. Um, yeah, Oprah definitely. Um, Jesus, yes. I mean, if you think of person Jesus, yes, but I would be, but if I think of non-person Jesus
Another.
and I take Jesus out of there,
Yes. Very good.
I would actually say I would actually like to talk to Priscilla. I'm fascinated by Priscilla and Aquila, and I want to know what was really going on in that marriage. Just they're just they seem like they're positioned as a power couple. I want to talk to Priscilla.
I know that Priscilla and Aquila, I think that they mentioned that they met Paul in Rome initially, and then after the famine, they
Right.
moved back, and Paul revisited them. So that's all I know. So I really even didn't consider going further than that, but definitely very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So we got one more.
Um, one more. So many like really okay, I'm just gonna do a fun one.
Hmm.
A fun one, okay? And I don't know why she comes to mind right now, except I think that she's gonna pass soon. So I'm gonna say a new one. This is just a fun one. Dolly Parton.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Good.
again, again, I think it would be a hoot.
Yeah.
Um, again, a pioneer has done much more for women than I think, and maybe history will see that for her. But savvy later lady, like there's nothing dumb about Dolly Parton, and she has always stayed so true to herself.
Yes.
And
Absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, from the early 60s, right? She's been
yeah,
on, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Again, great businesswoman, also very active in charitable. I think having friends in Tennessee, that she's very active in charities as well. So great human being. I love it. Quick questions about you. If you were talking to yourself, a 20 years old version of yourself, what would you tell yourself if you actually met and you had about 5 minutes and you would give a life advice how to steer your life?
Stop dating bad guys first.
Also common, but that's
But you know what? That all comes down to you are enough. I would say remind myself that I have what it takes to do everything I want to do, and you are going to do more than you even imagine. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I did not see myself as actually leading the newsroom. And
so did you do the
that's more
undergrad, bachelor undergrad in the communication? That's the
yeah, my undergrad was communication. So I reported and then I became a producer. And I never aspired to be at the top of the newsroom. It was just like I just wanted the next step up. Each time I got something, I just wanted the next step up, and eventually the next step up will be the thing. I would tell myself to stop worrying so much about what other people think, and my worth is not valued. And that's something is I'm wired as an achiever. I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram. I'm a 3. I am an achiever to the extreme. I'm a strength finder. Competition is my number one thing. And I think what I really struggled with in my 20s, and I wasn't emotionally aware enough at that point to know what it was, but it was always about feeling like I had to prove my worth and constantly proving my worth. And whenever you're in your 20s and you're not emotionally mature, then the emotions that get tied with to not thinking.
you sound like a guy that would be more competition oriented rather than more feeling.
It's funny, in a lot of personality tests, they'll comment that like I've got like a lot of
Male characteristics or
male characteristics. Like they're like, oh, you're like exactly like our CEO of the company. Like I'm very like if you look at the different things, like what's another one that's called we're galvanizing and discernment are my top two. And competition is always very high. Achieving, when you get down to like 5 or 6, like my soft, like I still have woo and some soft skills in there, but my highest ones are very intense. You're like, that doesn't sound like a fun person.
you're a pit bull, not a French poodle, basically. Yeah, that's what it. I think that's what I get that as well. Let me ask you another question. So you would give that kind of advice to yourself? And what advice have you actually received that you think is the best advice that somebody gave you when you're growing up or in your 20s?
Well, I'll never forget. I don't know if it's advice, but I think it's very important when you see something in someone to speak into them. I can still tell you by name the people in the moment when they would say to me, you have no idea what you're going to do. Like, you'll be able to go as far as you want. And the people who took the time from the time I was like 15 to 30 and actually just pulled me aside and spoke into someone like that, that just, it means the world. And we should never let an opportunity, I think, when you see something in someone, to tell them that, because they'll remember it and it'll be like what keeps them going at times when it goes to that. As far as advice,
What do you could you so you mean that if you see somebody, let's say a teenager or adolescent doing well, that you just kind of
yes, or
you
young
don't.
adult, yes, you tell them, and you tell them what they can do and what you see them doing. And just to know that someone believes in them and sees that in them. I don't know if I would be where I am today if there weren't, I could think of four people in the right time told me. Like, I think of Sherry Cohen. She cut my hair when I was a teenager, and most people called me Susie when I was little, but she said she would call me Suzanne because that's what she would say. She said that's what an attorney or doctor would go by, as Suzanne, and that's what I see you being, something like that
Oh,
someday.
what a wonderful, fantastic, simple advice, and yet such a profound effect.
Yes, and I hear 50-year-old me still, like, remembers her telling me that, and a consultant that came in and said, you're going to go as far as you want to go in this business. And so when you see potential in someone, tell them, because like I said, they may not be where they are or reach that if they don't know that someone is in their corner and sees that in them. Advice, my best advice. I don't always follow this. But one of the things that gets me in trouble more than anything is my lack of listening. I talk all the time. And I had a boss who told me before I speak up in a meeting to pretend that I was taking a nice slow sip of wine before I say something in every meeting. So I try to remember to do that. A couple of like things people have taught me to slow down is like that. They've all been centered around slowing down and being very aware, developing emotional intelligence. I have another boss who told me, it was in the middle of a big news story and I was leading the team, and she said, Suzanne, I know you were under control, but these people don't know you and they think you're freaking out right now.
That's
And I'm like,
funny.
okay. Good to know. And she told me what someone had told her is, when I sense myself getting in that mode, to like move my ring to my other hand or put a rubber band or something. So then I'm feeling it constantly.
They're
And it,
breaking the cycle somehow, just to breaking that pit bull cycle. I totally get it.
yep.
It's again very simple and very doable piece of advice. I tell you what, it's fantastic. I really enjoyed talking to you. I wish we had more time.
Yeah.
I think that I studied the Bible also, so thank you for giving this new perspective on it. I'm starting to read it again this year at January 1st, so I'm going to kind of probably pay more attention. Thank you again. I've got to get going. I'm sure you too. I know that you've got teenagers and you have to take care of many things. It was an honor talking to you. I learned a lot.
It was great talking to you. I enjoyed
Oh,
it.
yeah, very good. So, and hopefully we'll talk again.
Yes,
Thank you,
definitely.
Susan.